Hello, I'm Chris Hills with Security Interviews, and we're here with Shirley Pierini today. Shirley has a vast background in security, and we're going to talk to her about all kinds of different areas. And I want to start off by thanking you for coming up here to Seattle to the ASIS conference, and where you're doing some teaching as well.
Yes, thank you.
So Shirley, how did you get into security in the first place?
Well, a long time ago. I started actually here in Bellevue with the police department.
Okay.
And then that kind of got in my blood, and I stayed in police work for about 15 years. And I decided that instead of staying in a dangerous kind of work and to get into something a little less dangerous with 3 teenagers at home, I had better find something to do. So I went into corporate security. And I have had such a wonderful life in all areas of corporate security.
So we talked a little bit earlier off camera about the wine industry or the
Yes.
vineyards industry, and
Yes.
that seemed very, very interesting. Can you tell me can you elaborate a little bit
Sure.
for us on
I worked for a large conglomerate in Northern California up in the Sonoma area,
Beautiful
not the
area.
famous Napa. We were on the cool coastal climate side where Napa grows most of their grapes. But I learned when I was chief security officer for Kendall-Jackson Families, and I learned everything from how to produce the root that goes in the ground for those wonderful grapevines to the wine on the table. And it was such a vast education. And to drive to work in the morning, driving through the vineyards, is heaven. It's wonderful. I mean, I could tell you that's my passion. I learned everything in how to control the fleet of vehicles, to taking wine from the vine when it comes off at harvest time, to bottling it in the bottling facility, and then how to transport that to warehouses, and how to safe keep those trucks so that the product gets where it's going.
Seems like there's a lot of risk points.
Oh, very, yes. Yes, many risk points. And there's the opportunity for counterfeiting for the labels. There's the opportunity for theft in just the product itself that's bottled, before it's labeled, after it's labeled. There's the transportation risk of hijacking trucks, and we did have trucks hijacked. So there's a myriad of elements that go into that.
Yeah, that sounds like it. So at some point in your career, you decided to get really involved with ASIS.
Yes.
And kind of move through the leadership chain.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I started, I was manager of executive protection for Bank of America for 10 years. And while I was there, I finished my degrees. And after I finished my second degree, my graduate, the director said, "You need to join ASIS." That was in 1988. I joined ASIS, and I can honestly say I've never looked back. 27 years of seminars, not missing a year.
Wow.
Because that's an opportunity to talk to communicate with, to find new colleagues. The networking is just incredible. It's never let me down. I can go anywhere in the world, pick up a phone and call someone and say, "I'm in the country. Can I meet with you?" And I'll know someone in that country.
It's a pretty amazing network. The ASIS International Conference is huge. And if you've never been there, it is probably one of the largest venues for security practitioners in the world.
Yes, and this is our 60th year.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yes, it certainly is.
Okay, so let's digress to that executive protection. In executive protection in those days, there wasn't very many women in that field, was there?
No, there were very few women in it, and the reason that I landed that position, I had come off the police department. I knew California law, and I had a tremendous staff behind me. So I had all of the chauffeurs, all of what we called then bodyguards, and I actually did a lot of other security details, but it was my job to do the advanced work for the board of directors and senior staff. It was also my task to do their homes with risk assessments, with putting in the alarm, the appropriate alarm systems and cameras and so on. It was very, very fulfilling. But after I finished my degrees and after I got all of my people trained and so on, there was no real career path for me. So I had an opportunity to go back to a police department in a command position, and I took that. And I will say that the good Lord's been very, very good to me. In fact, every time a door has closed, another security job has opened.
Isn't that amazing?
And it brought me back to the Northwest, where I worked for Macaw Cellular. I got to build my own first security department.
Yeah.
That department, actually that company became the platform for AT&T Wireless, as you
Yes.
know it today.
Yeah.
And even though AT&T said they had a lot of directors and they didn't need me, they needed my team. So another portion of telecommunications called and said, we know what you did in the Northwest. Would you come to California and do that? And I did. So for another 3 years, I worked for a telecommunications company that AT&T again bought. And I said, well, I either need to be a scout for AT&T or I need to go out on my own. Went to consulting. And to this day, I'm in consulting.
In consulting, when you say consulting, really it's taking all that background information and putting it forward to share with customers.
Right.
And letting, helping them through those same things that you came up on in your tenure and your time with the different companies. You've been on the forefront of women in security from day one.
Yes.
As a past president of the ASIS International, one of the largest security organizations in the world. What would you say to a woman that was going through school right now that was thinking about getting into the security industry?
I would encourage her to get involved in the Women in Security organization. It's now a council, and to talk with the colleagues in there. There are definitely career paths for women in professional security
Absolutely.
management, and if there's a choice in degrees to get, it would be get a security management degree, maybe as an undergrad, and an MBA or something along that line in master's programs. In fact, there are security management master's programs coming out now, and that's not a bad way to go, because in the future, and as security goes forward, it's going to just open up more and more. Police departments can't possibly do everything that the public needs them to do in this day and age. That's where the public private industry comes together. That's where the working together with the two entities mean that there's more openings for our young professionals and for women in security. There are more women now in security, and in ASIS, we're still at only about 12% of women, but it's important that we grow those numbers and to let women know that there is a place for them, that it's wide open. They can be anything they want. We have women who are in the military, who are admirals and who are colonels, and I mean it's not a closed society anymore for women. When I started in law enforcement, we couldn't even be called police women. We were called clerk matrons. And then it progressed because women, more and more women were in the industry. And now there are sheriffs. A sheriff in Orange County is a lady.
Our past King County sheriff, she was fantastic. And,
Yes.
and she was a great sheriff.
So it's a career path no matter how you go.
Absolutely. So when you're doing consulting now, working with different people, have you run into some interesting areas of consulting that you would say that are challenging you now, that you're enjoying?
Sure. As technology advances, so does security.
Yes.
And the challenges
Quickly.
become, yes, very quickly. I was just talking a little bit ago about a challenge I had this week. I'm doing a bid on toll roads.
Toll roads.
And the crossings of toll roads, and when you go through the toll booths. In fact, in Southern California, there are no longer toll booths. Everything's automatic. So there's a bid out now for putting all of this risk assessment, to identifying the risks and bringing the solutions and so on to these tunnels under the freeways. And it was like, well, I've never been there before, but it's yet another challenge that I get to address.
It makes it pretty interesting. Where would you say security is going in the future? I know technology's taken a very large integration into the security world. What do you see as some of the challenges to that, or some of the maybe horizons that are coming up in security?
I think some of the largest challenges that we will address, and I'm sure that we'll rise to, because we do, that's what we do to progress, is cybersecurity. There are so many risks in every element of our computerized world.
Absolutely.
And I was just hearing a talk just a little while ago that was talking about how workplace violence used to be the #1 issue in the workplace. Now it's cybersecurity, that
Wow.
the cyber breaches have now taken over #1 spot. Workplace violence is #2. Well, thank you for that, but that's still a huge challenge.
It makes sense. I was talking to somebody today about the fact that in a building you have so many entranceways. In cybersecurity, in the sense of if you use the physical vision of something, that building would be laying on its side with all its windows open.
That's right. Yes.
So it was very interesting.
It is.
Shirley, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you not only coming
Thank
up
you.
to Seattle, but
It's my
doing this
pleasure.
interview with us.
Come and see us in Southern California.
Absolutely.